Robert De Niro. The man, the myth, the legend. For over 40 years, De Niro has sat at the top of the Hollywood Golden Boys table, proudly and deservedly lauded as one of the greatest actors of all time. He has one of the strongest, highest quality bodies of work in film. From the many different starring and supporting roles across Martin Scorcese's classic filmography to the winning streak of wholesome comedy roles in nostalgic 2000s darlings like Meet the Parents or Silver Linings Playbook. De Niro has dominated pop culture through both art house cinema and commercial blockbusters, making him one of the few people deserving of being called a household name. In 1990, he lent his enormous talent to the horror genre for the first time in Scorsese's 1991 remake of Cape Fear, playing the deranged killer out for revenge, Max Cady, with taunting glee. It's perhaps because of this legendary success that this article's central subject is such a strange anomaly. 2005's horror thriller Hide and Seek, starring De Niro and Dakota Fanning. Despite the gushing praise for De Niro in the previous paragraph lauding him as one of cinema's biggest icons, nobody is perfect. And it was around the mid-2000s that De Niro temporarily slipped into a worrying spat of mediocre and even downright terrible films. Examples include his hilariously outlandish role as the almost Nazi-like, fearless leader in the family comedy film Rocky and Bullwinkle, generally considered to be one of the worst films of all time, or accompanying his long-lasting creative partner, Martin Scorcese, to lend his voice to the forgettable flop that was Shark Tale. At the center of this unfortunate period for the Taxi Driver star, De Niro starred in Hide and Seek, a film many consider to be one of the most offensively boring and failed attempts at a horror movie to have somehow gotten a wide release and big actors to back it up. So, in the wake of one of De Niro's best performances to date in Scorsese's latest effort, Killers of the Flower Moon, let's celebrate one of his worst, straight out of the box. Hide and Seek is already confusing in how it somehow managed to attach big names to it. In short, there is nothing original or special about Hide and Seek, as it takes one of the most basic, cookie-cutter synopsises that the most cynical Hollywood exec could muster up and proceeds to do absolutely nothing of note with it. Grieving widower and psychiatrist David Calloway, De Niro takes his daughter, Emily Fanning, to an isolated house in the woods to recover from the trauma of his wife's/her mother's apparent suicide. Emily starts acting mildly creepy, claiming she has an imaginary friend called Charlie who's making her do somewhat odd things that inconvenience or straight up serve to bully her dad. And that's basically it. In a barely 90-minute runtime that feels longer than the 3-hour epics De Niro had starred in before, 90% of our time is spent continuously pummeling the tired horror cliché of creepy child with an apparent imaginary friend that clearly isn't imaginary at all and has bad intentions, until it collapses under its own weight of mediocrity. To top it off, the film is sealed in its grave of abandonware by one of the most nonsensical and offensively exploitative twist endings in horror history. Throughout the film, we see David and Emily trying to live a normal life in their new typical countryside home, very quickly overcoming the grief of losing a wife and mother while very slowly doing chores and other busy work to pad out the film's runtime. Sure, every neighbor acts like a strange and awkward alien following a how-to-human script and with a skin-crawlingly inappropriate tendency to complement the looks of the infant Emily. But even still, David and his daughter have found a sort of peace. Their peace is spoiled as Charlie, Emily's imaginary friend, starts to come across as more than just a figment of a little girl's imagination. What a surprise, taunting her father in increasingly violent ways, such as decorating the bathtub with blood to remind David of his wife's suicide. Of course, David believes it's his daughter acting out the trauma of losing her mother through the scapegoat of Charlie. David is a psychiatrist, after all, so he starts to evaluate his daughter in the hopes of helping her. Neighbors keep acting inexplicably weird and creepy around David while, at the same time, Emily acts weirder, killing a cat, and making creepy drawings of Charlie playing with her.